So, okay. So again, we have 3 more classes today and 2 next week, and then the exams a week from Monday. And same deal as the second exam. You can show up at 8 a.m. I'll be here. Officially, the exam starts at 9:30. So today I want to do a couple of things. So first thing I want to go through is my solution of this problem. Not the only one. So, and I handed it out. So I've opened up the file. I'm going to count the total number of schools and the number of schools in each state. So I have to create a variable that I'm going to initialize to 0. I now prompt the user for the state, and I'm validating that the state is 2 characters by doing this validation test. And then after they come out of the state, I'm going to turn the state into uppercase by using the upper method. And now, as we saw in class the last time, that I can go through each line of input from the input file by incorporating a variable and saying in and then the name of the variable which points to the file that I'm opening, which is universities with state. So line now is going to assume each line in the state, in the file, one at a time. And then I'm going to now count, update the total schools count. So I want to count the number of rows that are in the file. And then my idea, not the only idea, but my idea on how to do this was, since I knew that the data consisted of a school separated by a state with a comma, my idea was to take that line of input that was read in and create a list out of it, a 2-element list, and I'm going to put that in the variable school data. So school data will have as its first element the name of the school, and the second element the state. And then I didn't need to do this, but I said, okay, fine, I'm going to extract out the state by taking the second element of school data, which is the state, and put it into the variable school state. And I don't think you needed to do this, but I was being compulsive here by saying, okay, I want to take that state data and I want to strip out any white space from the left and put it back into school state. And then I want to strip out. Now, here was the important part. I actually didn't need to have the \n because I think that's done automatically by just calling rstrip. Is that true? You didn't have to have the \n in there. So what was important is that, as I pointed out to you in class on Monday, that the data has as the last value on each line the new line character. So you hit the enter key, it puts in this new line character. And that's actually in the data, so I have to strip it out, because if I don't strip it out, then the state is going to be 3 characters. So I'm stripping out the state, and I'm then, now that I have a 2-character state, I'm now comparing it to the state that the person entered to make sure that if they're the same. And if they are, then I'm going to increment my counter, the state school counter, by 1. So now I've done all the heavy lifting. Now I'm going to go and tidy up and close the file. And now I'm going to test to see if the number of schools in the state is greater than 0, because the message would be different if it were 0. So if it's greater than 0, then I'm printing out the number of states, the number of schools in the state, and giving the percentage of schools in the state as a proportion of the total number of schools in the table, in the file. So I'm rounding it, I'm dividing it, multiplying it times 100, and then rounding it to 1 decimal precision. If it's not, if there are no schools in that state, I'm simply saying there are no universities in that state. Check your spelling, and that was it. Any questions on mine? Anybody do it differently? Better? Brian?
I just took from the end of each line, so I did like substring, if you will. So I did len minus 3 and len minus 1, so then it was the...
So Brian took the line, and he said, well, you did in an if statement?
Yeah.
If, and then, so Brian's idea is, I don't need to go through and split this thing into the parts. Why don't I just look at that total string, and I know the state is at the end of the line, and so Brian extracted that by saying what? You did line.
So I did... yeah, so I said... if line, then len of line minus 3 colon...
Hold it a second. So he took the total length of the line, and then he subtracted 3 from it. So he doesn't know what the length of the line is. Subtracted 3, and then you did that to what, minus 1?
Minus 1, yeah.
So Brian's trying to get out the last 2 characters out of the line. You did len of line.
Mm-hmm.
So that might be 20, and then you take 3 from that, so that's going to be 17. So you're going from minus 17 to minus 1.
Oh, no, to len line minus 1 in the second round.
Oh, okay, fine.
Yeah.
I got it. Okay.
So I'm just isolating
Yeah. Okay. So he's taking the length of the line, got it, and he's trying to get the last couple of characters, and then what did you do?
equals state dot upper, or whatever. Or state.
And you didn't have to strip out. Oh, that worked?
That worked, yeah. You hate me?
What?
You hate me?
Not yet, but I'm working on it.
Okay.
So you got around, you sort of you actually didn't even consider the new line character by the way you actually...
Yeah.
I was just wondering if you couldn't have done... Remember, you can address things going from right to left. You didn't have to do it that way. But I'm not sure that works. But so did everybody see Brian's way of doing it? Brian didn't want to look at the last. He just wanted to look at the characters in there. And did anybody do it this way, something like this? Brian, you did it also? Did you do it his way with the length, or you just did it, you just used negative indexes here? You did line -1?
Well, I had to line dot splits, and if x is equal to line -1.
Okay, so you did do the split. He didn't do the split at all. He simply looked at the whole line, all the characters in the line. I'm sure you could do it Brian's way. I'm sure his worked. I have no reason to disbelieve him. I'm just wondering if you could have done it that way without doing the length. But that was another way of attacking it. You didn't have to go through all this other stuff.
That's why I was confused with when it's like part 2, adjust, that it has like the state thing. I was like, I don't have to change.
Now you don't have to do anything.
Yeah,
Oh, now I
it
hate
still
you.
works.
Okay, so, right. So you handed in the same solution for both problems.
I just changed the bottom.
Okay, that's okay. Anybody else? There we see. So the way Brian did it, he was simply looking at the end of the line, and so when he did problem 2, it said you can either have 2 or 3 elements in the list. He said, well, that doesn't concern me because I don't care about the elements. I'm only looking at the characters at the end of the line, and so therefore he got out of doing part 2. Yeah.
Why for that one do you have to like do it to -1? Why can't you just do -3 to the x? Because it doesn't run.
You do that?
Yeah.
I think you can, Courtney.
When I ran it, it told me there was no universities in that state.
When you did this.
Yeah. Full line.
So Courtney thinks this should work. It didn't give her a compile error, but when she ran it, it didn't find any universities in the state. So Courtney, I think the reason is, Courtney, that, well, why don't we do the following? So let's print out the length of the line when you do that. So, Courtney, I was trying to debug this and I want to get more information. And I said, you know what, I'm not sure when I do this -3, it said it's returning 3 characters. Is that of concern to you?
Yeah.
Because?
Because the state's too fair.
Right.
Okay.
So what do you think is wrong? Well, why don't we now print out, okay, so now I did that. Why don't I just print out the line? I could have done that all in one shot. Okay, what do you think that third character is?
This basically.
Carriage return. Notice that when this ever stops. Okay, I'm bored. So it printed GA, right? And normally they would just go to the next line to print FL. But in fact, the character, that third character, was the carriage return.
Okay.
So if we wanted to change your program, what would we do here?
You might have to-
I think if you went to -1, let's see what happens there. That didn't work either.
You didn't change
Yeah, you didn't change
the else print.
else.
So that looked like you got the right characters there, right? Well, this didn't work right because it gave me 0. So I'm not sure. It would seem like it extracted the right variable there for the test. I'm not sure why.
Did it give you 0? Because that's what mine looks like.
Okay, so. Oh, really? Oh, I didn't increase that counter. Okay, fine. Well, that worked. Okay. So you don't want too many characters. That was actually good instruction. So, I mean, part of doing this is, I swear the following is true. The first program I ever wrote, ever, like I was you, and I was in a class, and the professor gave out this simple programming assignment that I wrote, and I typed it in and it worked the first time. That has never happened since. That was 1970. I swear to you. And I've been programming pretty much continuously ever since. You always have problems in it. So a skill that you have to build up in doing this is figuring out how to do debugging. And the debugging, like I just did with Courtney, typically means I'm going to try to print out values of variables to see what they were. Courtney was I had an inkling as to what the problem was. But if you ran into this problem, Courtney, you should have, I think, try to figure out, hey, I'm doing this test here when you had this. Really, what were the characters in line, bracket, -3, colon, returning? And the only way you can do it, Python doesn't have great resources, is to put in these print statements to see what those values are. And then that's going to give you an intuition as to what went wrong. Okay, so everybody but Brian has to watch this then. So here is the second part of the problem where you could have either 2 or 3 elements in the list. And in my solution, everything was the same. The only thing I needed to do was to test to see if the number of elements in the list was equal to 3, in which case school data would have pointed to the third element in the list. If it's not equal to 3, I can assume it's 2, and therefore school data is I'm going to get the second element of the school data list and put that in school state. So the only thing that changed from problem 1 to problem 2 was the test to see whether I had 2 or 3 elements in the list, and then I, based upon that if statement, I set the variable school state to either the second or third element in the list. Okay, so I'm going to do a couple of new things today. Okay, so an easy thing is if we were to run this code, if I were to have 2 statements, hello, and print goodbye, of course, this would, we're not surprised to see that it prints hello and goodbye on 2 separate lines, because by default, after you execute a print statement, the print statement will print whatever's in whatever you tell it to print, and then it will put in a new line character to get you to the next line so that the second print statement, goodbye, occurs on the next line, right? But let's just suppose you wanted to print hello, goodbye, and you didn't want the goodbye to be on the second line. You would say to me, okay, don't be an idiot, just put the hello, goodbye in the same print statement. Okay, that's fine, that would work. But just grab me, suppose I couldn't put them in 2 different, I had to put them in 2 different print statements that are occurring in different places in the code, but what I wanted, the output that I wanted was that it would print hello and goodbye both on the same line. Well, it turns out that there is a feature in the print statement that allows us to control that, and that's the following. So if we add to a print statement, so a print statement could have any number of strings we want to print out or variables that we want to print out, but if we suffix the line, so if the last thing we have, I think it has to be at the end, comma, and then we have the word end, colon, equal sign, double quote space, double quote, what this tells the print statement to do is I don't want your normal behavior of putting a carriage return at the end of the line. Instead of putting a carriage return, what I want you to do is to put just a space. Not a carriage return, but just a space. So that if I now change my program to, in fact, do this, now, in fact, you see that it says hello space goodbye. Get it? So now we see that the print statement allows us to specify a suffix. And you could do this as much as you want. I could put it here, and if I would say print the end, then, yeah, right. No, I didn't mean that. Hold on.